Good afternoon, everybody. It's your boy, Pigskin Pete. Happy Thursday beer stream to everybody. Ironically, I don't have any beer, but I do have some holiday festivities here. Anybody like eggnog? I love eggnog. Tastes great. Not very good for your heart, though, from what I hear. Obviously, this is a call-in show. I try to do this call-in show every week. The past 2 weeks, I think the last one I did was 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was out of town for the weekend in Asheville. Last week was Thanksgiving, so I'm glad to be back on the horse. This is one of my favorite things to do, is have people call in and voice their frustrations, their happiness, whatever it may be, to talk about college football, about their teams, or about what's going on in the land of college football. A couple of things I do want to say before I get into the comments and before I open the phone lines. Well, actually, the phone lines are already open. You can call in at 864-207-4522. And if you want to talk about the coach firings, you want to talk about the championship games, you want to call and tell me how much your team sucks and how disappointed you are, you want to tell me how you're an Ohio State fan and you can't wait to beat the crap out of Clemson, whatever it may be, the phone lines are open. This show is driven by the callers. There's no predetermined content. Everything is driven by the callers. Before I do that, there's a couple things I want to say. First of all, it's been happy holidays to everybody. It's been a great year here on YouTube for me. Let's see, as of January, I think I might have had 1,000 or maybe 1,100 subscribers. As you can see, I think I'm approaching 3,000. Hopefully I'll get there before the end of the season this year. So what I'm getting at is there's a lot of new people here, whether you've been here for 6 months or 6 weeks or 6 days. Doesn't matter. I fully appreciate every single person who watches, subscribes, comments, the people that donate, especially to help this YouTube channel continue to grow. My goal has been the same for the past 2 years and 2 months or whatever it is that I've been doing this. It's simple. It's to connect with like-minded people who love college football. And it's exceeded my expectations. I never even thought 500 people would be watching me. Hell, not even that. 50 people would be watching me. But I do this because I love it, because I love college football year-round. And I know there's a lot of other people out there that share that sentiment. So I hope, and I do know that some of you appreciate the effort and the hard work that goes into having content come out year-round and on almost a daily basis, maybe 4 or 5, 6 videos a week throughout the year. So I fully appreciate every single last one of you. Doesn't matter which fan, which team you're a fan of. It really doesn't matter. Also, before I forget, everybody who's a Clemson fan, even if you're not a Clemson fan, maybe you just hate the Gamecocks and you'd like to watch them lose. You can order your Cycling Out t-shirts. There's a link in the description of the video. Got t-shirts, hoodies. Click the link, go check them out. Got all kinds of different sizes, colors, the whole deal. It is Christmas. It's time to buy a gift for all the Gamecock haters out there. And maybe if you're a Gamecock, you might even want one too. Just so you can, I don't know, burn it or something. Let's see who is in the chat here, and then I will go to the phone lines. Christian Ballard's in the house. SC Tiger Fan 803. Gator Hater, hashtag Knoll Nation. Good afternoon, Pete. Good afternoon to you, sir. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Captain Trips says, howdy, Pete. Slim Shady, Canes. Good evening, ladies and sirs. Johnny Red Dot's in the house. Hello, Pete from the Outback Bowl. That's a good one, sir. So Johnny Red Dot is a Alabama fan. And also an NC State fan by way of marriage. And so he's making fun of himself, which is very funny. George is in the house. George is one of my favorite Gators, if not one of my favorite people. Cheryl J. Good for you. I'm not a sub. Well, you're missing out, Cheryl. Mark Cardy. Hey, Pete. Looks like I tuned in during the monologue. Really, though, appreciate the work. Thank you, sir. Appreciate every single one of you as well. Again, the phone lines are open. 864-207-4522 if you want to call in. I'm going to go ahead and check the phone lines right now. And it looks like I have a caller on the line here. Good afternoon. You're on with Pete.
Good evening, Pete. How are you?
How you doing, sir? I think I know who this is. This is Slim Shady Canes.
I'm amazing and fantastic.
Hey, I am amazing and fantastic too. Before we get into the football talk, you have any special plans for the holidays? Is there anything special you do during this time of year?
Uh, as a matter of fact, I do. Um, normally people have stuff break down around their house. So, being the red-blooded American I am, if I have something break down, say for instance, my fridge broke down this year. So, right around Christmas time, I've got 35 acres at my house, and
Wow.
we go out to a little more wooded area and fill it up. Right now, I'm sitting on about 20 pounds of tannerite.
So you
and send it off. Back.
So you are a proud American who. Let me see. Let me put this the right way. You're a proud American who exercises his right to the Second Amendment, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. I am too. That sounds like
no
fun.
No discretion whatsoever.
What state are you in, if you don't mind me asking?
Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah. So you're right in the South. That's very welcome in the South. So yeah, I'm with you on that. So this is one thing I'm going to ask every caller tonight, if I'm blessed to get callers other than you. Real tree or fake tree at Christmas time?
I love real trees, but I subscribe to the theory happy wife, happy life, and she prefers a fake tree.
Yeah, so I'm in a similar situation. So I love real trees too, but I broke down about maybe, I don't know, it's been 4 or 5 years ago and bought a fake tree because I was the one that had to keep up with the tree, keeping it watered. I had, at that time I had 2 dogs. I only have 1 now because one of them died this summer. But anyway, they would bump into the tree, and if the tree got a little bit dry, all the needles would fall. I'd be sweeping up needles all day long. So I got tired of it. I got a fake tree, and I got to say, I'm actually glad that I got the fake tree. It's so much easier. I just pop that thing up, takes 10 minutes, plug it in, and you're good to go. No watering or anything like that. So I'm a fake tree guy now.
I mean, I'll say this. My 3-year-old did enjoy helping my wife put the tree up. So, I mean, there's something for it.
Yeah, well, there's nobody in this house going to help me do anything, so I had to do all that by myself. But anyway, so on to the football talk. What you got for me today, sir?
I think I'm one of maybe 12 Miami fans not jumping off a cliff.
Well, I think you're probably right. Based on what I've been seeing on YouTube and on all social media, yeah, I think you're right. There seems to be, and this has been going on all year, hasn't it? I mean, even when you guys were still, in the ACC hunt, there was still a lot of infighting going on between Miami fans about the coaching and about the quarterback situation and everything. Now the season's over for the most part. And, obviously Miami fans aren't happy, and really, I can't blame them. But, I mean, what did people really expect? I mean, I obviously expected to win more games than you did. I mean, that goes without saying. But outside of that, you have a new coach. You have a new coaching staff. There's been a lot of turnover over the past 4 or 5 years in Miami in general. I mean, are people expecting Miami just to go out there every year and make it to Charlotte and go and compete for Orange Bowls and eventually for playoffs? I mean, it takes time to do that.
That's what I'm preaching, but I'm the dummy, apparently.
Yeah. So in a perfect world, in Slim Shady Cane's world, if he could create his own Miami world, what would next season look like?
8-4, 9-3.
And who would be the offensive coordinator in that situation?
Danny knows.
And I'm assuming you're going to tell me that Manny Diaz should be the head coach, which I completely agree with, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, 100%.
And who should be the starting quarterback week 1 next year?
I was a big Perry guy. But I've just seen more out of Jaron this year.
Okay. Now, do you have any recruits coming in at the quarterback position that may give them a run for their money, or I mean, how's that look?
I haven't seen his highlights because I try and stay away from them because they are highlights. but they do have a 4-star out of Pennsylvania, Tyler Van Dyke, coming in.
Okay. Now, where does Miami sit? I think I was just looking at this yesterday. I want to say they were in the top 12. Where are they sitting as far as the projection for the recruiting rankings this year nationally?
I think they're just outside of the top 10.
Right.
Because even with these, and that's why that's the main reason I'm not freaking out. Because even these last 2 games where they lost to FIU and Duke, they picked up the number 2 running back in the state of Florida. They picked up a silent commit from somebody. Manny put it out on Twitter. We don't know who yet. And Justin Flo made a visit there and put something out on social media, apparently, that he was really impressed with what the coaches are trying to implement and the campus and everything like that.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to hear his announcement on December 18th is what he's telling us.
Yeah.
I know it's coming down to Clemson, Miami, and a couple of other schools as well. But, the new part of college football that we're all still trying to get used to, that Miami has actually used this to their advantage in the past couple of years, is the transfer portal. Is there any inkling of any of these star players or, the top tier players for Miami right now that you see possibly transferring out after this year? Or do you hear any that are looking at transferring in?
Well, I know we have one transferring out. We picked him up in the 2018 class, I think. Realist George. He was either number 1 or number 2 fullback in the nation. Mm-hmm. And what I've seen of him, he's not very good. I mean, a true freshman tight end beat him out for blocking duty.
Wow. Yeah.
So he said he's going, but that's really about it. I think we had one wide receiver say he was transferring out, but he was a guy that never saw the field. And then we had an offensive lineman that that had put his name in the transfer portal and has now taken it out and said he's staying at Miami.
Okay. As far as the bowl situation for Miami, and I haven't really, honestly, I've been trying to do the different scenarios for some of the New Year's Six bowl games. Obviously, Miami's not going to be in the run for that. So are you projected to play a certain team in a bowl? I mean, what bowl and who do you think you'll be playing?
I've seen the Independence Bowl in Shreveport a couple of times. I've seen, I can't remember what it's called. It's in El Paso. I went to it a few years ago. It was horrible. Snowstorm. No. And I've also heard possibly the Military Bowl and possibly Music City. And considering I'm in West Tennessee, I'm leaning towards Music City for wanting that one.
Will you go to it if it's there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not looking to jump off a cliff. Miami fans really seem to have forgotten how college football works. Okay, it took Butch Davis 5 years to rebuild the program from basically being dead.
Yeah.
It took Howard Schnellenberger 5 years to build the program from basically nothing beforehand. I mean, they had some good years way back in the day, but it takes time. That's why I'm not freaking out. I see and people saw in the Louisville game what the Miami offense can do when everything is clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah. But
the bigger issue Manny's having to deal with, and a lot of people are purposefully ignoring, is look at the FIU game. No effort out of a lot of the players.
Yeah.
And Manny's got to weed guys out that are going to be that way.
Yeah, I think Miami fans have to come back down to earth. It's not 1990 anymore. I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about Miami fans in general. They're still living in the past. And you know what? It's hard to recruit consistently and recruit great players when you have constant turnover in the program. You got to have consistency with the coaching program. This is one of the reasons, I mean, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that Clemson's been so successful. I mean, they're the most, as far as continuity goes, there's nobody in the country that has more continuity than they do at the coaching staff. And so recruits like that, they know that the coaches are going to be there, and it's much easier to recruit. And it's just a better, if you're changing, Alabama's been a victim of this, right, in the past couple of years. They're always losing their coordinators, and it's starting to come back to bite them a little bit. I mean, they're constantly changing schemes, and some people might not think that's that big of a deal if you have a bunch of 5 stars, they can play in any scheme. But if you play in the same scheme with great coaches for 4 years straight or 3 years straight or however long you're at that program, it's much easier to win than it is if you're doing something different every year. So, yeah, I'm fully with, sticking with the guy, give these guys a chance. I think they fire these coaches way too soon these days. I mean, even Chad Morris.
Oh, I completely agree.
Chad Morris, I mean, yes, Arkansas is terrible. I mean, they looked awful. But what did they expect to happen in 2 years there? He was going from 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense with a bunch of slow, quote-unquote, fat players on offense, and he's trying to run a high-flying spread offense. I mean, did they expect that to be a successful deal in 2 years?
Willie Taggart at FSU.
Willie Taggart. I mean, I think Willie Taggart's a little bit of a different situation because they had all the talent, and they were going maybe to a different scheme, but they had just all kinds of problems other than on the field. I mean, they were undisciplined. I mean, these guys were fighting. The penalties were ridiculous. They didn't seem to know their ass from their elbow on any given play. So he just sort of lost the team, and I'm not sure he's really that great of head coaching material to begin with. But,
and I agree that I don't think Willie Taggart's very good, but I think Willie Taggart was also having to clean up problems left behind by Jimbo Fisher, especially about the team being undisciplined with off-the-field issues.
Right.
And I think I actually gained a lot of respect for Willie Taggart when he decided to give up the offense and then brought in a guy like Kendall Browse. Kendall Browse is a very, very good offensive coordinator.
Right. Yeah.
So, I think they should have really given him some time. And, listen, being a Miami fan, I want Florida State to be good because I recognize in years past, if it wasn't for Florida State, Miami wouldn't have been what it was and vice versa.
Yeah, I think the whole thing at Florida State, they have bigger problems than just their coach. There's no meeting of the minds between the athletic department and the administration for the university, and it seems to be that the boosters are completely running the whole show at Florida State. So if it were up to the administration, they probably would have kept Willie Taggart, or maybe not hired him at all. But when it's up to the boosters and they're running the show, they're going to run everybody out of there. I think Willie Taggart was doomed from day one, really. I'm not sure that the boosters ever wanted him in the first place. And then once they hired him, they were under constant pressure, even after just the first year, last year, to get rid of him. And it finally came to a head. And, after losing all those games, they just had to do it. The successful programs always have to have, an administration and a coaching staff that are on the same page. And that's clearly not happening at Florida State. And that's one of the reasons I think you're not seeing people jumping to that Florida State job. I mean, there's a lot of big names out there that would probably flourish in Florida State, in Florida in general, with all that talent down there. But they're not rushing to get to Florida State because they're like, I don't want to go into that dumpster fire where they're going to want to fire me after a year and nobody can agree on anything. So I think Florida State's...
And that's exactly what I said about Manny with all these people that are wanting to fire him. That's exactly what I said. I said, who wants to come here and be the third coach in 3 years?
Exactly.
I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't think Mark Richt was a bad hire. Now, did some things need to be changed? Yes and no, because here's the thing. Mark Richt was wanting to run a similar offense to what he ran at Georgia. He didn't have the offensive line or, the big 6'2", 250-pound backs to do it.
Right.
And would he have got him in time? Yes. But, he decided to step down. They hired Manny. I didn't have a problem with that, with the turnaround that Manny had done with the coach. I mean, with the defense. But and I told people over the summer, I said, as good as it can be, I said, it can be the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a risk you take with a guy that's never been a head coach before. I mean, look at Kirby's first year at Georgia.
Right.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Granted, he turned it around really quick. Power to him. Can this happen here? Yes, but not if you're ready to run people off after 5 games.
Yeah, and very few coaches have a massive amount of success in their first year. Dabo Swinney didn't. Even Nick Saban wasn't lights out his first year at Alabama. It takes time.
No.
And Manny Diaz.
And people want it. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. And I've used that exact example. And people want to throw around, well, Alabama had a 5-7 season the year before Nick Saban got there. I said, yeah, but look at the record books. In 2005, they won 10, 11 games.
Right.
That was not a bad team that Nick Saban took over.
Yeah, and even with Tommy Bowden at Clemson, I mean, I wanted them fired a lot longer before he was, but he had some great years at Clemson. He wasn't all bad. He was just very inconsistent. He was up and down, up and down, up and down. But
right.
I mean, Manny Diaz, he's the guy that was on the coaching staff when Miami had the best year that they've had in years a couple of years ago when Mark Richt was head coach. And of course, he knows the Miami area. He knows the high schools there. He knows the players. So that all is very important. Now, the time will only tell how great Manny Diaz is going to be in the future. But to say that they expected him just to come out there and win the Coastal and go to an Orange Bowl or whatever it is in his first year is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean they were, Miami fans made comments, after the FIU game. Manny Diaz got completely outcoached, or after the North Carolina game, Manny Diaz got completely outcoached. And I'm sitting here wondering, am I the only sane person left in the world? Because you're talking about Butch Davis and Mack Brown that have got probably 55 years of head coaching experience combined. Of course he got outcoached.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let this guy...
And I'll tell you, this is how far it's gotten. One of the outspoken players on social media is a player by the name of Kelvin Harris. He was an offensive lineman at Miami. He was there for 3 national championships, 87, 89, and 91. 91 was his 5th year. Won a Super Bowl ring as well in a 10-year NFL career. Miami fans on Twitter are telling Kelvin Harris he doesn't know football and he needs to shut up.
Yeah.
When he says the offensive line is bad and you're not going to be good until you have a good offensive line.
Yeah, show me one single team in football that succeeds without a good offensive line. Show me one.
Not one.
There isn't one. I mean, that goes from the NFL down to high school. I mean, that it's probably outside of the quarterback, it's definitely the most important position on the offense by a long shot.
Yeah, and I think people were expecting Jaron Williams to come out and light up the world. Because they've been a little spoiled here lately because Tua came in as a freshman and did really good. Trevor Lawrence came in as a freshman and did really good.
Right.
But that's not the norm.
Yeah, that's definitely the exception, not the rule. I mean, the vast majority of quarterbacks take a year or two to flourish. And especially when you
I mean, you've seen what he can do, with going back to the Louisville game. He set a Miami record and tied the ACC record with 6 passing touchdowns in a game.
Yeah. He's definitely got potential. He's got the arm. He's got the mobility. He's got everything he needs. He just needs to settle in and let the game slow down for him a little bit. And we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm a little bit hesitant to jump on the Miami bandwagon for next year. Of course, we got the whole offseason. I'll make a determination during that with whatever happens with the coaching staff and with some of the new players that come in and all of that. But I still think that Miami, there's like 2 or 3 teams in the ACC that I feel like have a high upside, right? Obviously, Florida State, just with their talent. Obviously, Miami. Both of those teams, based on their name brand and the amount of talent that's in Florida alone. And then, of course, I think Virginia Tech and possibly North Carolina should get a lot better as well. Louisville also. So there's a bunch of teams that have a high upside, but you can't just bring a new coach in and expect to be winning 10, 11 games. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I completely agree. And here's my thing: if they manage to get a guy like Justin Flo, and I don't know who the two silent commits are that Manny has mentioned, but you add Justin Flo to what they have, Miami's got a top 10 class.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if they bring in a top 10 class this year, and they're returning all 6 starters. Well, I say starters. It was 4, your starters and your couple of rotational guys. But you're returning 6 guys with a lot of meaningful experience on the offensive line. They're going to be a lot better next year.
Yeah.
And then when you add, quite possibly a top 10 class on top of it, like I said, I think going forward, not next year. I think next year I just want to see more improvement. But 2021, maybe 2022.
Mm. The good news for Miami is that there's a lot of teams in the Coastal Division that are also going through a transition. Obviously, North Carolina, Georgia Tech. Unfortunately, though, you have some teams that are getting hot right now and getting better and have a little bit more experience with their coaching staff, and that is Virginia and Virginia Tech. I still think Virginia, though, I think they're very good. I like Bronco Mendenhall, but they're still Virginia. I mean, they don't have the pedigree, right? So good coaching can only go so far. So if Virginia can put together another season next year, if they can win 9 or 10 games next year like they did this year, I'll be highly, highly impressed with that. But Georgia Tech, they got a long way to go, right? I mean, even Mac Brown at North Carolina.
Oh, absolutely.
Mac Brown at North Carolina, they're putting together a really good recruiting class this year, too. I think they're projected to be in the top 10, which is pretty amazing. I can't remember the last time North Carolina had a top 10 class. But really, the rest of those teams, outside of maybe North Carolina and Virginia Tech, and maybe Virginia, that's really the only teams that Miami should have to compete with next year.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. The North Carolina game, we literally lost because of bad kicking. If he had made the field goals he missed, we'd have won that game.
Yeah.
Virginia, we beat. And that's why I really can't point it at coaching this year because of the teams Miami beat and then the teams Miami lost to. Miami beat the better teams on their schedule and played Florida very, very close. And then you lose to the lower teams on your schedule.
Yeah. Well,
And that show, and going back and watching games, seeing the players' body language, the Central Michigan games they almost lost, FIU game, Duke, you're seeing a bunch of players that are just don't care. And you, quite honestly, Brett Romberg and Bryant McKinney did a podcast earlier this year, and they've caught some criticism from some fans because of what they said, but they came in on their own time in the summer to work with the offensive line. I mean, you're talking the center and the left tackle from Miami's 01 team.
Right.
And Brett Romberg, he pretty much said, I guarantee you Butch Berry's in there with that offensive line every day just banging his head against the wall because, Romberg said, we're sitting here talking to these guys, trying to explain things to them, and you can literally just see it going in one ear and out the other with some of them. Yeah.
Well, hopefully those players that you say gave up, I mean, one of those ones that's definitely inexcusable is the Central Michigan, right? The Florida Atlantic game, was it Florida Atlantic or Florida International? Can't remember.
Florida International.
Yeah, Florida, that's even worse. See, that's inexcusable. So those guys that you're saying are giving up, those are the guys that need to be demoted or kicked off the team, and you can fill the positions with guys that actually care. That's the part of the problem when you have the constant turnover in coaching staffs. So you have guys give up, and you got to get those guys out of there, or you're never going to do anything.
Yeah, well, and actually, mild correction, Florida Atlantic would have been a little worse. I mean, at least FIU is in what used to be the Big East.
Yeah, but Florida Atlantic they're playing for a championship this weekend, though, in their conference.
Yeah. Like I said, it some problems surfaced this year that I think Miami, at least from my point of view, that we didn't know were there. And I think is what really kind of helped lead the season where it went.
Well,
but like I said, I'm not looking to fire anybody yet. I mean, I'm a big believer, minimum with a new coaching staff, 3 years.
I agree.
And I'm willing to give, Manny, a guy that's never been a head coach, 4 or 5.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think 3 years minimum. I'm more in the 4 or 5 year range, unless things just go completely in the toilet. Now, if you came out next year and won 2 games, that'd be a different story. But as long as you're going upwards instead of downwards with the new coaching staff, then you got to let these guys do their thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But as far as the rest of the season goes, I'm predicting a Clemson Ohio State national title game. To me, and I've agreed with you all year, those look like the 2 most complete teams in the country by far.
Yeah. I mean, LSU is definitely capable because of how good their offense is. If they catch somebody slipping, any of these teams, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, whoever it is, if they catch one of those defenses slipping one day, they could certainly beat them. I wouldn't put it past them. But I think the chances are, unless Ohio State and Clemson play each other in the first round of the playoff, that's most likely who you're going to see in the national championship game against each other. And if they do end up playing each other in the first round of the playoff, I think the winner of that is most likely going to go on to win the national championship, because I just think they're the 2 best teams.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. That as far as the conference championships, only 2 of them are really standing out to me of really being toss-ups, and that's obviously the Baylor-Oklahoma game, because that game was so close the first time around.
Yeah, I can't believe that Baylor is an 8.5-point underdog, or they were yesterday anyway. I can't believe that. I mean, we saw Baylor just completely take Oklahoma to the woodshed in the first half of that game. They just completely folded and let Oklahoma come back. So I don't know what makes people think that Oklahoma is just going to go out and blow Baylor out. I don't see that at all. Plus, you know what? It's hard to beat the same team twice, especially if you're on equal ground. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm picking Baylor to win that game, but, I mean, I think it's going to be a really close game between those 2. That's an interesting game.
Yeah, and honestly, LSU Georgia is going to be the other one. I mean, you have, the 2 best half of teams in the SEC.
Yeah, I think the thing that hurts Georgia the most is I think Cager is hurt, right? That's their number 1 wide receiver, and they're not very deep at wide receiver at all. That's been one of their problems all year. They have another player.
Pickens is out for the first half.
Yeah, Pickens. He's the one that got in a fight, right? Yeah, he's out. Mm-hmm. And then Swift, I think, had a shoulder injury. I'm not sure what his status is going into the game. I'm assuming he's going to start. But
according to Lou, his feelings were hurt more than anything.
Okay, yeah. But Georgia, if they can keep it close into the fourth quarter, they'll have a chance. Listen, Georgia's not built to come back, though. That's the problem. So if Georgia gets down by 2 or 3 touchdowns at any point in the second half, I think that's a wrap. But if they can keep it within 7, 10, 14 points in that range going into the fourth quarter, they'll have a shot.
Well, I think you're also going to need the Jake Fromm to show up that showed up for the Florida game.
Yeah. And believe me, I think Jake Fromm's a great quarterback. I mean, I'm not like, Trevor Lawrence great or Tua great or Joe Burrow great, but he's very, very good. He has been working, and he's been doing a lot, actually, with very little talent on the outside. Listen, there's not a single player, maybe other than Cager, who's hurt. There's not a single player on that wideout crew that would be a starter at Clemson right now. There just isn't. So,
I don't know a lot about the receivers they brought in. I tend to defer to Lou's opinion on them. And actually, Lou's opinion is more the other way around. They've got a lot of talented receivers, and more so Jake Fromm's the problem. Or a combination between Jake Fromm and the offense Kirby wants to run.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. But
well, I can tell you this much from a fan of a team that has had James Coley as their offensive coordinator. This is not a James Coley offense.
Yeah.
It's not.
Right.
So that that's why I'm kind of leaning toward maybe Lou's right about, Kirby wanting to be a little too hands-on with the offense and how they do things.
Yeah. Well, he would definitely know better than me. I'm not going to say that I know better than him, but I still think that Fromm is. I mean, he's way above average, and he's probably one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the SEC without a doubt. Now, how he'll translate to the NFL is a different story, but I'm talking about college.
Right.
So. Yeah,
I wouldn't disagree with that because you got Tua, Jake Fromm, and Joe Burrow. I mean, Kellen Mond has really underperformed this year compared to expectations.
Yeah.
And then, the rest of the SEC is the rest of the SEC. I mean, they're just as bad as, Kansas.
Right. Yep. I agree. Hey, listen, man, I got another call, so I'm going to let you go. But
all right, boss.
Have a happy holidays, and be careful with that tannerite. I know how that stuff looks when it explodes. Yes. So make sure you're at least safe 200 feet away.
Oh, no. We're going to be at least 200 yards away.
Oh, there you go. Even better. Good.
You get 20, 30 pounds of that stuff, you get a nice boom out of it, trust me.
I've done it before. I know how it is. Yeah.
All right, y'all have a good night.
All right, man. Have a good one. There you guys have it. That's Slim Shady Canes, the resident Miami fan that calls in on a regular basis here on the Pigskin Pete YouTube show. I got a super chat from Captain Trips. Pete, what are your thoughts on the Ron Rivera firing? Where will he go, and who will you get? First of all, thank you for the super chat, sir. You're amazing and fantastic. And the guy who's on hold, just hold on one more second. I'm going to answer that. The answer to that is, where will he go? I have no idea. I've heard a lot of New York Giants fans saying that they want him. Why? I don't know. The New York Giants are basically becoming the Carolina Panthers of the Northeast. They've got David Gettleman, who is the former general manager at Carolina, and they make a lot of trades with Carolina, and now they want our coach. They're ready to run Pat Shurmur out of town. And first of all, I don't disagree with running Pat Shurmur out of town. He's been a massive disappointment up there, but I don't know. And as far as who we'll get, I haven't even thought about it. I saw a list today on Twitter of a group of coaches. None of them really stood out to me that I liked. Lincoln Riley is one that a lot of Carolina Panthers want, but I don't see that happening. I don't know why Lincoln Riley would leave Oklahoma and come to Carolina. I just don't know the reason they would do that. Also, Jim Harbaugh is another one I saw. I don't want Jim Harbaugh, period. I know he's had success in the NFL, but I don't want Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh's a weirdo. Jim Harbaugh left the 49ers, hated in San Francisco, even though he took them to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game the year after that. I don't want him. He's very good, but he's not going to win any championships. So I don't know the answer to that question. Let me see who's on the line here. Thank you for holding, sir. You're amazing. Good afternoon. You're on with Pete.
Hi, Pete. This is Anthony. I'm a Hurricane fan like Slim Shady that just called you were talking to earlier. Do you think, honestly, with the Hurricanes, do you think it would benefit them to switch out their all the way at the top, like switching their athletic director and the person who raises funds for the sports programs instead of switching the coaches? Because honestly, I don't think Blake James is. How long is there? What is the question I'm trying to ask? You know how there's a time limit you expect a coach to be successful, like 2 to 3 years or 2 to 5 years. For an athletic director to be successful at a program, how many years do you give them before you start think of replacing them with a brand new person?
I mean, I'd say at least 3 years, unless things fall apart before that and just continually get worse. But as far as
because Blake James, to be honest, honestly, I don't think he's he's more of a Group of 5 athletic director. He's not a Power 5 conference type of athletic director like the guys from Alabama or LSU or something like that, or Ohio State. We need someone like that. And the guy I'm looking at is the guy who's working underneath the athletic director for LSU. He went to Miami. I forgot the guy's name now. He's the guy who does the fundraising. He's a vice chairman of the athletic department.
Yeah, I don't.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No,
Like,
I honestly, I have zero knowledge about the athletic department or director at Miami as well. But I do know one thing: you got to stick with the guy you got that you hired to do the job and give him some time to do it. I don't care who it is. I mean, you make it.
No, we've had him for 6 years. He was the athletic. We hired him from. He was the athletic director when Al Golden was our coach.
All right. So he's the one that also hired Mark Richt.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, whether you're firing,
So that's what I'm saying.
whether you're firing coach, if first of all, if you fire the athletic director, if that's what you're saying to do to get rid of him, if you think he's the problem, well then guess what comes after firing athletic director? A new coach. So you're back to square one again.
So you don't think if they end up replacing Blake Baker or Blake James as the athletic director, you don't think the new athletic director would be keeping Manny Diaz or that coaching staff? He would hire his own coaching staff.
Well, most likely. I mean, you never say never. So we just saw this happen at Southern Cal, right? So Lynn Swann stepped down or was fired or whatever you want to call it halfway through the season. They brought in a new athletic director at Southern California, and he ended up keeping Clay Helton. But I think the only reason they kept Clay Helton is because they weren't getting Urban Meyer, and there was really nobody else out there that they felt like they were going to get. So I think they were ready to fire Clay Helton, but 9 times out of 10, when you make an athletic director change, it's only a year or two, usually the first year, when they fire the head coach, because you don't make an athletic director change if things aren't going bad in the first place, right? I mean, if things were going great at Miami or Southern California or any of these other teams, they wouldn't be firing the athletic director. So the two go hand in hand. It's usually a marriage between the athletic director and the coach, and most of the time, same thing in the NFL, right? Usually when a new general manager comes in, he fires the coach. And so, I mean, if you think or other Miami fans think that the athletic director is the actual problem there, then yeah, fire him. But just know that if you fire him, you're looking at probably another 2 years of a turnaround before you get stability on the program.
And do you think, so you don't think it would benefit us or hire someone to be the athletic director in waiting or something like that? Like hire someone like, who's the guy who was the athletic director at FIU or FAU or something like that? Was it Ken Dorsey? Wasn't he the athletic director for FIU? Like he was a former Hurricanes player.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
And I have a question about the playoffs. What has to happen for a team like Utah to become go into the playoffs? Do the other teams have to lose really badly, like Georgia or Ohio State?
At this point, I think the only thing that really has to happen is Georgia lose and Utah win. The only way I could see Oklahoma jumping Utah to take that 4th spot, if Georgia loses, right? It would be if Oklahoma if Oklahoma just completely blew out Baylor and destroyed them, and then Utah had some kind of struggle win against Oregon. So that's possible. But at this point,
this is a weird scenario. Let's say Ohio State loses to Wisconsin, which I don't think is going to happen. But if that happens, are they still in the playoff?
I think so.
If they get either blown out or lose in a close game, are they still in the playoff?
If they get blown out, that's one thing. That's not going to happen though. But if they lost, let's say they lost to Wisconsin, I think Ohio State's still in the playoffs. Yeah, I think they might drop from 1 to 3 or 4, but they'll still be in the. They're still going to be one of the best 4 teams in the country, whether they lose to Wisconsin or not.
I'm not. I know you're a Clemson fan, but realistically, do you agree with them being as high as number 3? Because look at their. I know they've blown out everybody on their schedule, but they haven't played really. That's another argument that I've heard from people saying that Clemson doesn't really deserve to be number 3. They might be number 4 because they haven't played anybody on their schedule.
Okay.
and stuff like that. So
So here's what I'll ask you. Name 3 teams in college football that are better than Clemson right now.
LSU,
Okay.
Ohio State,
Okay.
maybe Georgia.
Really?
Right?
You think Georgia's better than Clemson?
Oh no, not my mistake. Like overall or one side of the ball, like the overall best team.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that what you're talking about? Like offense?
I'm talking about a better team all around.
Okay, I can only name 2:
Yeah.
Ohio State and LSU.
Well, there you go. That's why Clemson's
For
3.
now. Hello, you there?
Yeah, that's why Clemson's 3.
Okay, even though their schedule hasn't been, they don't have a good strength of schedule. That's why they're still number 3.
Yeah, they're number 3 because nobody can name 3 teams that are better than them, just like you just couldn't.
And do you agree with the whole strength of schedule argument? Because look at Ohio State; their schedule is backloaded. So in a way, I agree. But the first few games of the season, they didn't play anybody. So you can say the same thing with Ohio State. They didn't have a good strength of schedule until these last few games. Don't you agree?
So how many teams in the country do have a good schedule, according to you?
The SEC always plays really tough, so that's out of the question. Maybe Oklahoma has a fairly good schedule, but they're top heavy, and they usually have a good out of conference schedule because I think they played Georgia this year. Didn't they play a good out of conference schedule this year?
No, their out of conference schedule is completely terrible, actually. Them and Baylor.
Yeah, but like I said, I think the only people that have a good strength of schedule is the SEC because they constantly play the teams in their divisions multiple times, two or three times. I think that's the only conference that I can say that has a good strength of schedule overall.
Right.
When it comes to why can't you do that with the other the other conferences is because there's too many bad teams in the Big Ten and the ACC, stuff like that in the Big 12.
I don't even know the answer.
Is that why people favor the SEC teams a little bit more when it comes to voting for the college football playoff?
I don't know the answer to that. Here's what I do know, though. I know there's 131 teams in Division I football. I know there's only 12 games a year for each team that they play in the regular season. I know that 8 of those in most conferences, 9 in others are conference games. So that leaves you a total of either 3 or 4 games to schedule outside of your conference. A couple of those are already predetermined if they're rivals, like Clemson versus South Carolina, that kind of thing. So then now you're down to either 3 or 2 games you can schedule outside of your conference. It's literally impossible mathematically for every team to go out there and schedule a top 10 team 3 years out and expect them to be a top 10 team. If Clemson schedules Texas A&M like they did with the home and home these past 2 years, if Texas A&M is a top 5 team this year, then that's a top 5 win for Clemson. If they're not, then it's not. I mean, there's only so much of
So you don't agree with this whole strength of schedule argument that people are bringing up with Clemson and Ohio State and stuff like that? Because I don't agree with it either. I'm just saying I've read articles saying, like sports bloggers saying that Clemson and Ohio State don't deserve to be that high because they don't have a strength of schedule. LSU should be higher than Ohio State because of their strength of schedule playing teams out of their schedule is fairly good and stuff like that because of the SEC schedule, and they have 2 top 25 wins, don't they? The last two weeks in Alabama and Auburn.
So here's what we'll do. We'll just say at the end of the year, whoever's got the most top 25 wins is the national champion. We'll just go back to 1930 and say whoever's got the most top 25 wins is the national champion. Forget the playoffs.
No, I don't agree with that. I'm just saying that's what this blogger was saying, that they should determine, and I think to eliminate this, they should mix computers and people. Do you think it would help to have a computer, like a BCS rating system with a college football playoff system as well? Have the computers do all the rating of the schedules, and the actual people do the eye test on how they played in the games?
Well, I can't tell you this. I do know this much, that the past, what are we, going into our 6th year of the playoffs? So the past 5 years, the first 5 years of the playoff, the same teams that ended up being number 1 and number 2 in the BCS at the end of the year ended up playing in the national championship during the playoff system as well. So they still have a BCS system. It's just meaningless now. So the BCS and the playoff committee have agreed every year on who the top 2 teams are at the end of the season.
Oh, so there's still really a BCS system in the college football, a BCS ranking system, but they don't call it the Bowl Championship Series. They just call it the CFP playoff.
Well, what I'm saying is that there still is a BCS computer system. It's irrelevant. But the playoff committee has agreed with the BCS the last 5 years. That's all I'm saying. So if we never went to the playoff committee, you still would have had the same 2 teams every year playing in the national championship. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so people are just complaining because you think people who write these articles are saying that there's not really, and this argument was made to make it an 18 playoff or 16 playoff if they expand the playoffs. Do you agree with that?
Well, they can make it a 100-team playoff if they want to. You're still going to have the same teams that are the best every year. If they go to 8, which they're eventually going to do, it's not going to change who wins the national championship. I don't believe that. I mean, maybe one out of every 20 years you might have an outlier that gets hot at the end of the year, but most years, look, you could put 8 in this year. It's not going to change the outcome of who wins. There's at the end of the day, as much as people don't want to really admit it, every year there's only 3, 4, maybe 5 teams at the most that are legitimate national championship contenders. And if you want to put 8 or 12 or 16 or whatever in there just to make you feel better and say, hey, we made the playoffs, yippee, great. You're still going to have the same national championship at the end of the day.
And how do you think it would improve? Do you think to make the players play in the lower bowl games? What do you think the NCAA would have to do to make these players maybe improve the level of these bowl games and stuff? How like the games before the playoff and stuff like that, not the New Year's 6 or something like that. I'm talking about the games before the New Year, like during Christmas and stuff like that, the week of Christmas and stuff. How do you think the NCAA can improve those bowl games to make players go into those bowl games to make them matter?
I don't think you can. I mean,
there's no way to improve those to make those lower bowl games matter to people. No. If they're going to be like top picks, like for example, I think Alabama's not going to be in a New Year's 6, are they? This year?
They still could, but I think what you're asking me is how do you get players to not sit out bowl games if they're going to the draft? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no way to stop that. It's a free country. You can't make them play. So if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. I mean, I don't like it. A lot of people don't like it, but again, it's a free
as a fan, you have to. I understand player safety; they don't want to get injured and ruin their draft stock, but that ruins the game for the fans who actually pay to go to the game. Don't you agree?
Yes. Yeah, but your question was how do you stop that from happening? You can't. I mean, you can't force a guy to play football. I mean, it's a free country. He doesn't want to play, he doesn't have to play.
In order for them to do that, maybe pay the players, and the NCAA will never do that.
Yeah, no, that's well, I don't know. That's a whole different story. But you can't stop.
Do you think that's ever going to happen?
Yes, I do.
Like fully, the NCAA being forced to pay these players.
No, they won't be paying.
Cover them and stuff like that.
They won't be paying the players, but they'll be allowing them to make money on their own. But listen, I got to go. I got another call that's on the line, but I appreciate the call.
Okay, bye.
All right, man.
Bye.
Good afternoon. You're on Pete.
What's up, Pete, man? How you doing?
What's up, Dondre? How you doing, brother?
Man, you were talking to your brother, sir?
My
Brother from Germany?
what are you talking about?
I swear. He ain't know nothing about college football, bro.
Hey, come on. Hey, don't be hating. Hey, don't be hating on my callers now. That's my job.
Oh, okay, man.
How you doing?
I saw you on Mark's show, and I had a long talk with Mark. And I had to tell Mark, Dabo's not whining. And you're a Carolina Panthers fan, and that's a great thing. Like, I see some Carolina Panthers saying that they want Dabo to be coach of the Panthers. I don't think people get what Dabo is. And this is no slap at Dabo. Dabo is a salesman. He's a CEO. Chad Morris and the Venables helped Dabo turn Clemson to what he is. Dabo was doing his little thing. He's a very likable guy. He reminds me of Bobby Bowden, what Bobby Bowden did with Florida
Me too.
in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a father figure. I'm gonna get these guys to come to my school, tell them how great it is, and these other guys gonna coach them up. I'm not saying Dabo's gonna. I'm saying he's a CEO, and I think what he's just saying is that we be disrespected because I was playing in my video in the Mark Rogers. If you look at what Joe Klatt said, ESPN and Paul Farbach pushes up the SEC a whole lot. They always like SEC this, SEC that, and maybe the SEC. Maybe that's why people have issues with ESPN and Paul Farbach because that's all they are. SEC, the best football conference. SEC this, SEC that, and I think you even said it. They have 5 bowl eligible teams. They don't play. They play more FBS teams than anybody else, the non-bowl subdivision, whatever they call it nowadays.
Well,
and that's true. And that's part.
I'm saying they have 9 bowl teams, but the ACC has 10. But that's besides the point. Go ahead, finish your point.
Yeah, I just think that the system is biased towards Clemson, and I made this point just like you did. I think it's Oklahoma State. A healthy Wake Forest would do the same thing that Oklahoma State did in the Big 12 this year. I know Virginia had lost 3 games, and 3 of them was on the road. Virginia could compete with any of those teams in the SEC. I don't know. I really haven't seen Baylor play outside the Oklahoma game, but I know Baylor's schedule was just as small as Virginia's was. And I bet you Virginia will finish with the same record.
See, here's my thing.
If they would play the same thing.
Here's my
thing.
Sir. First of all, they don't give national championships to conferences. They give them to teams, individual teams, not conferences, right? Now,
right.
Nobody.
It's not close to the job.
There's not a single team in America that can control their conference schedule. It's already set in stone. They can't control that. They can't control how the other teams in their conference perform or how good they are from year to year. What you can control is who you schedule out of conference, right? So again, like I was telling,
and those are the years available.
Right. So like I was telling Mark Rogers, you can criticize Clemson in the ACC all you want for the ACC being bad. That's fine. Great. Go for it. But Clemson does not run away from competition. There's very few teams in the Power 5 that schedule 10 Power 5 teams a year. Clemson does every year, and they're the only team right now that has 10 Power 5 wins. Clemson goes out of the way to schedule, not lower tier SEC teams, but mid to upper tier SEC teams every year, whether it's Auburn or Georgia or A&M or whoever it is. Can they control how they do that year? No. So I don't understand the argument about people say you don't play nobody, you don't play nobody, you don't play nobody. Well, hell, a lot of these teams are saying that. The only reason they play somebody in their eyes is because they just happen to be on their schedule in their conference. They can't control that. But then they go out and schedule trash teams in the non-conference. Look at Baylor's non-conference schedule. It's a bunch of people you never heard of. Same with Oklahoma. This year, Ohio State, you could say the same thing for them. Now Ohio State they don't run away from competition either. I mean, a couple years ago, they had a home and home with Oklahoma, back when Baker Mayfield was there. But and they scheduled Cincinnati this year, which Cincinnati happens to be a good Group of 5 team. But what if Cincinnati wasn't a good Group of 5 team? What if Cincinnati was a 5-loss team this year? Does that make Ohio State any less of a great football team because Cincinnati has 5 losses? If they did, no, of course it doesn't. So when people say there's a weak schedule, play somebody. I mean, what do you want us to do? Should we just let's make a law? Let's make a law in college football that Clemson has to schedule Alabama every single year in the non-conference in the regular season, because that's the only way that people are going to say we play somebody.
Right. I totally agree with you, and I've made that point. Man, like I told Mark, I said before y'all two have started talking about it, I had made that point earlier in the week before everybody else did. And I was like, coach can't help who they play. These schedules done years and years of events, and that's another thing that about the playoff committee. If they rank like what's that school that we just saw? Iowa State, number 10 in the country, and they have 4 losses, you can't argue with them because they're the ones that voted on that team.
Yeah. And it's also ridiculous that they have Cincinnati ranked, what are they, ranked number 20 in the country? And they've got Virginia at 23 or whatever it is. Cincinnati only plays 2 Power 5 teams a year. 2. And they got crushed by one of them, Ohio State. What was that, 40-0 or something? So what? I don't know who the other Power 5 team they played. They might have beat. I think it was UCLA, who sucks, right? So who's the best win on Cincinnati's schedule that's not a Group of 5 team? And they're ranked ahead of. They have 2 losses now. They're ranked ahead of Virginia. They're ranked ahead of Virginia Tech, and they're ranked ahead of Wake Forest, who play 9 to 10 Power 5 teams a year. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, does anybody really think? And maybe I know there are people that think this. But I think they're delusional. Does anybody really think that if Cincinnati played in the ACC and played a full Power 5 schedule, that they go 11-1 or 10-2? No, I'm sorry, they wouldn't. It wouldn't happen. And I'd love to see that happen too. I can't wait till UCF or one of these other teams gets bumped up to a Power 5 conference, whether they go in the Big 12 or the SEC or the ACC. I can't wait for that first year when they go 6-6 and everyone's scratching their head going, well, we thought that they could compete with the Power 5. Yeah, you could compete with a Power 5 team in a one-game scenario, but play 10 Power 5 teams a year and see how that works out for you. It ain't going to work out the way you think it's going to work out, I promise.
And think about it. I think it was Memphis. Memphis team is better. I know they are like 11-1 this year, but that team last year had a lot of NFL players on it. Wake Forest smashed them in the bowl game. I think it was Memphis or Cincinnati. I'm just saying they all over Dabo because Dabo's winning right now, and he's calling some of these people out about what they do. Callum Cowherd, all the negative stuff they say about Clemson's program. That's all it's about. They upset because Dabo said, hey, y'all keep saying all this about my squad, but what about them? The committee makes these crazy outside of the top from 6 to 27 to 20. We don't know who they how they come up with these formulas for some of these teams. Like, how was Baylor right behind Florida, and Baylor didn't have no losses? I couldn't figure that out to save my life.
Well, yeah. Well, I agree with you on that. Now, the difference is, I mean, there is a balance between who you played and who you beat and all that. There is a balance. I mean, you do have to take into consideration who you played. I get that. But if you play in a Power 5 conference and you schedule Power 5 teams outside of your conference, a couple of them a year, and they're not scheduling, Vanderbilt or Arkansas or Oregon State or something, and that's the teams you're beating up on. If you're scheduling people that have a pulse and you win those games and you're undefeated or you have one loss, I mean, how hard it is to go undefeated in college football for a major college football program. I mean, it's hard. And for people to sit around and say Clemson, they're not saying this now. Most people realize how good Clemson is. But halfway through the season, people were saying Clemson didn't belong in the top 10 because of the 1-point win over North Carolina. I mean, look, that's fine if you have that opinion. But for anybody who has any knowledge about football at all, you can turn on the TV, you can watch Clemson play anybody, I don't care if it's Wofford or Alabama, for 5 minutes and tell this is a bunch of NFL players on the field, and they're smoking everybody off the field. If you don't think they're one of the 4 best teams in the country, then maybe you need to watch something else. Go watch soccer or tennis or maybe golf. I don't know. Badminton, I hear, is getting hot now. But at the end of the day, it won't matter. I mean, Dabo was right. They're going to have to go. They're going to have to go undefeated.
I can name a couple of teams better than Clemson, though. I heard you ask your last call. I can name a couple of teams better than Clemson, though. You want to give it a try?
Who is it? What? Say that again.
I can name the 5 teams better than Clemson.
Go ahead.
Okay, the San Francisco 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cardinals, maybe the Cardinals. I think we can take the Bengals too. So yeah, a couple of those teams might be. I mean, I even heard Joe Clark say that he's one of the hardest people on TV on Clemson. He's even called it. He said, "Man, nobody wants to play Clemson in the first round."
Yeah. No, I mean,
and I don't care if it's Ohio, especially if it's LSU. I already said it. I think they'll wipe the floor with LSU.
Yeah.
I know everybody says, well, LSU this, LSU that, but they're not the same LSU on defense that they have been the past year. And I'm not going to say, I'm going to probably bet on the game anyway, but I'm willing to put my money up this year that Clemson play LSU in the first round in the Peach Bowl. Clemson's going to wipe the floor with them.
Well,
and I know a lot of, I don't know a lot of LSU fans, but I guarantee you, if it's LSU, now Ohio State, I would be worried. But LSU, nah, I think Clemson got them.
Yeah, look,
I think that'd be an easy win right there.
I give respect where respect is due. I'm not one of these people that just thinks that Clemson's the end all be all and is going to wipe the floor with everybody. I'm not that kind of guy. But I give respect to LSU. I give respect to Ohio State. I've seen what they can do. I mean, these are great teams. Georgia, even Utah gets respect. But that's not the question. I mean, yeah, Clemson, of course they can be beat. Anybody can be beat. But, for anybody to suggest that somehow just because the ACC is terrible that Clemson's not great, they're morons.
Yeah. But, Pete, man, you enjoy your day. I need to get on my Pittsburgh Steelers stuff. So
yeah.
I'm talking about Steelers football a little bit on my channel. But go Tigers. I hope we people sleeping on Virginia. I know you said I haven't talked to my bookie yet, but 28.5 points. I'm gonna say Clemson only beats them by 20 because I think Virginia away from home Virginia's terrible, but I think they lost to Miami by 4, Louisville by 7, and Louisville got a big lead on them, and Notre Dame blew them out at the end. But Perkins, he's a game changer. You got to watch it. Quarterbacks like that. And if Ben Hall would have let him play early in the year, it probably wouldn't have lost those 3 games, man.
Yeah. Well, I disagree. I think Clemson's going to stomp Virginia. And look, no disrespect to Virginia or anybody else in the ACC, but it's all fun and games until they see Brent Venables' defense, and then their heads start spinning. It's going to be a long day for the Cavaliers this Saturday. So.
Yeah, but when you get somebody that can got feet like that, I can't tell you anybody that we had that is as good as an athlete at quarterback that we've seen as Perkins this year. Now, I don't know what happened to that quarterback that they had. I think it's Hall. I don't know what happened to him this year.
I don't know.
I think he got hurt and he never came back. He was pretty good.
I think Perkins is dangerous. I think he may get a couple of big plays in there, but it's a 4-quarter game. And going up against that defense for 4 quarters is going to be a tall task for them. So we'll see what happens, man.
All
right, man.
All right, Pete. See you this weekend.
All right, brother.
All right,
take it easy.
All right, bye. You too.
All right, there you guys go. That's going to end the calls for tonight. I'm going to take a couple of questions or just read some of these comments in the chat. I want to thank all of you for sticking in with me for the past hour and 12 minutes. On this fine Thursday evening in the call-in show. I want to thank all the callers. I want to thank Captain Trips. I want to thank Nice Guy TV for the super chats. I want to thank everybody who's commenting. I want to go through some of these comments. I was reading them out of the side of my eye during these calls, and I saw some funny ones in here. What's up, Luke Godwin, Sergeant AR-10? How you doing? Luke says Notre Dame is everyone's pet dog. Just don't want to leave them home, you know. Matthew, I'm just going to call you Matthew. I don't want to mispronounce your last name. LSU is just scared of Clemson. I don't think they're scared of Clemson at all. But, yeah, I don't think they're scared of them. Mark Cardy, you play who you play. You do the best you can do against each team. I mean, it seems pretty simple, Mark. I mean, that's completely logical, but try telling that to everybody in the country who just thinks that who you play is all that matters and not how you play. Rick Slayer's in the house. Ohio State has 4 top 25 wins so far. This guy has no clue. Rick Slayer, or Sailor, or however the hell you say your name, how do I not have a clue about I don't even know what you're talking about. You know what? I don't have a clue. I'll tell you one thing, though. Ohio State has never beat Clemson. They're 0-3 versus them. And good luck with that this year. We'll see how it turns out. Hope you stick around. Brett Polamaki. What is this guy trying to get at? I don't know if he's talking about me or the caller. I don't know. I never get at anything. Ever. Gator Hater. Can you call block this guy? You guys are hard on the callers, man. Slim Shady Canes with another $5 super chat. Today's show is sponsored by the letter A and the number 12. He said, the trolling of Alabama never stops, even on the Pigskin Pete show. I haven't even brought up Alabama, but Slim Shady Canes takes his opportunity to throw a zinger in there. What's up, Bo Rouse? We will keep Dabo come back in a few years. I think he's talking about the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, he's not going to the NFL. And for all you people that think he's going to Alabama as soon as Nick Saban retires, think again. That ain't going to happen either. He may end up going there eventually, like, you know, when he's 60-something, towards the end of his career, just to go back home to Alabama. But it ain't going to happen in the next few years. Sorry. You're going to be real upset when that doesn't happen. Hokie for life. Virginia Tech is the best team in the ACC other than Clemson. Well, I mean, you had a chance to prove that last week. Now, I will say this, though. I think that Virginia Tech, and even Wake Forest is in that group. I think they're all right there together. Pretty similar teams, all very good teams. But to say that you're the best other than Clemson, I mean, you lost to Virginia last week. So, I don't know. Mad Max, Clemson also has the easiest championship game. Just saying with the narrative since Peete is triggered. You have never seen me triggered before. Passionate? Yes. Triggered? No. If I was triggered, I wouldn't be on YouTube right now. Believe me, if you saw me, just ask my wife what triggered looks like. It's not pretty. I'm taking Alabama and giving up the points. Okay. Brent Venables even managed to blast Alabama's offense last year. Brent Venables is the best defensive coordinator in football. It's not even close. So, yeah. And, of course, you know, the coordinators are made to look great by great players. The two go hand in hand, and Clemson has great players. So, you know, you couldn't put Brent Venables on Arkansas, and all of a sudden they're going to be the best defense in America. You got to have the players to do it with. But, yes. Hokies for Life says we are projected to play Alabama in the Citrus Bowl. Is that true? There's still a lot that has to happen before they decide where Alabama's going to go as far as the bowl goes. But that would be that would probably be unfortunate for Virginia Tech. I think Alabama would beat Virginia Tech. So. What's my opinion on Ryan Day? I mean, listen, this guy won the Big Ten Coach of the Year, right? For the first time. And that's a whole another thing. You know that an Ohio State coach hasn't won the Big Ten Coach of the Year in like 40 years, which is ridiculous considering that they've been the best team in the Big Ten for the past 40 years collectively by a long shot, right? But what I think Ryan Day has done is amazing. I mean, he didn't just keep the ball rolling from what Urban Meyer was doing. He seems to be, listen, this is the best Ohio State team we've seen since they won a national championship in 2014. So, yeah, I think what he's doing is amazing. I mean, he deserves all the accolades he can get. It's very rare that you see that, too, that you see a coach just take over from a legend and just continue to roll. We saw it with obviously with Lincoln Riley. Now, Lincoln Riley actually is doing better than Stoops was at the end of his career, but I think Stoops sort of checked out mentally maybe a year or two before he even retired, which is why he retired. But, yeah, it's still very rare to see that. Yeah. Well, Ohio State's not Clemson's little brother. Clemson's their daddy. That's what I say. So, anyway. Look, all fun and games over tonight. It's been an hour and 20 minutes. I got to get off. My computer's about to die anyway. I got to eat. Thank you all for stopping in. You're all amazing. You're all fantastic. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Thank you all to the donators and everybody who called in. You're all amazing and fantastic. I will see you guys, what's today? Thursday. I will see you guys on Saturday. I'm thinking about most likely doing a live stream for the SEC championship game. I think it's at 4 o'clock. So I'll keep you updated. Follow me on Twitter at Peete Pigskin. I post everything on there as far as what I'm doing, as far as my live streams and stuff. So follow me on there and you'll get all the information you need. And that's it. I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks for checking in. Have a great, great night and an even better Friday tomorrow. Pigskin Pete checking out.